Hi, this is Dr. Pachenik. For several weeks now, I've had a lot of problems with two specific individuals, and I'm going to explain why I have those problems and who they are. Number one is Pope Francis. Pope Francis just recently said that we should not worry about the economy in America. We should only worry about the people all over the world. Now, Pope Francis sits in a multi-billion-dollar Vatican, which is replete with corruption and pedophilia. The other person that bothers me, and may have had some relationship to Pope Francis, is Tony Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci. And the reason he bothers me is that, one, he trained me, and I know him to be a very good physician. But I also know him to be somebody who's self-aggrandizing, very self-righteous, and says to the world that we are not going to find a cure to coronavirus until we wait for 2 more years. And I said to myself, my God, he sounds like Pope Francis. So I wondered, what did they have in common that made them so self-righteous, so important, and yet they came to the pinnacle of their respective professions? And guess what I discovered? Both are Jesuits. What do I mean by Jesuits? I have nothing personally against Jesuits. I treated them. I honor them because they saved Jews during World War II and they ended up in the concentration camp. But what I did understand about Jesuits is they profess poverty, chastity, and obedience and self-discipline. In turn, what I see is a total sense of self-aggrandizement for the Pope, who is literally the director of the Jesuits in Latin America, who literally got himself to the papacy, despite the fact that he was involved in the death of 4 American nuns and 2 Jesuit priests. Then I look at Tony Fauci and I'm saying, my God, does he live in something akin to the Vatican? And then I realize, whoa, NIH, a multi-billion-dollar institution which has done nothing. In 40 years, that institution, and believe me, I was part of it initially. I had been part of NIMH, and I turned down the opportunity to be director of NIMH, or St. Elizabeth's Hospital, and I said, what in fact is NIH? And what are the institutions that are receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in America, and they seem to me like the Vatican? Empty, self-aggrandizement with total corruption and no specific outcome that is helpful to the American public. So I looked at Tony and I said, Tony, you're talking about a year and a half. Guys like me who went out and did a private practice, some of us even went under. We weren't self-righteous. We said, listen, the best thing to do is do what we know best, which is to give you Zithromax, to give you chloroquine or hydrochloroquine, and guess what? People get healed. We don't have to sustain 6 feet away. We don't have to have an abeyance of all our economy. What we have to do is to go back to business. Unlike Pope Francis, most of us don't have hundreds of millions of dollars. Unlike Tony Fauci, we do not make $400,000 a year. Yes, think of it for a moment. This self-disciplined individual who seems so humble, but is constantly equivocating when it comes to President Trump. He can't quite say, oh, you're wrong, but on the other hand, you're right. He only makes $400,000. The director of NIH, by technicality, should make anywhere close to $250,000 to $300,000. He, like Pope Francis, got a special dispensation to get $400,000 because he remained at NIH for 30 some odd years. If you don't think that's like a Jesuit priest, then you please tell me what you do think it's about. Let me now say to you something very practical. America needs to go back to work. We cannot afford this normative concept of waiting for months and years to go back to work. America is based on business. The domestic affair is business. The foreign affairs is business. Let me quote a very famous person. Golda Meir once said to Bibi Netanyahu, don't be so modest. You weren't all that great beforehand. And I say that to Tony Fauci and Pope Francis. Thank you and good luck.
Buy my book.
Oh, excuse me. I'd like you to buy my book. It's an audiobook, American Warrior in Crisis. Sorry about that. I forgot.